Welcome to this session of Bharat Gyan. In this session, we shall look at the metallurgical prowess of India, how metallurgy was a brand for India, and more so in particular, how it was iron and zinc which gave this brand to India. Today, when we talk about the iron of India, everybody remembers the Delhi Iron Pillar. This is the Delhi Iron Pillar.
Actually, if you look at the Delhi Iron Pillar, which is famous all over the world as the rust-proof pillar, this is actually not in Delhi. This pillar was originally constructed, made and erected in Ujjain on a hill called Udayagiri. Probably this was made by Chandragupta Vikramaditya, the great king of India, probably around 400 CE. That is about 1600 years back. This particular iron pillar, which had a Garuda on top of it. On top of this, there was probably a Garuda Stamba here. So this was constructed there in Ujjain. And later, that is about 1200 CE, there was a sultan in Delhi by name Iltutmish. He had captured Ujjain then and he wanted to bring back as war bounty. So he uprooted this iron pillar from there, removed the Garuda on top of it, and then he brought it to Delhi. And look at this. This is a painting of how he had so many bullock and elephant, and he pushed and brought it all the way up to Delhi. If you look at this Delhi iron pillar, the base is like a bulb, like an onion bulb. And the height of the pillar to this, look at this. The height of the pillar is 22 feet. But if you look at the base, it is only about 18 inches.
1.5 feet.
1.5 feet. But it's got a bulb there and it's got spokes like how a torpedo has got spokes. This has got the spokes. And it is 6.5 tons in weight. So this small bulb, this onion-like bulb, has to hold and balance the weight of this whole 6.5 ton pillar. So what it says is, it's not just a metallurgical marvel that it has not rusted, but it's also a civil engineering marvel because it's able to hold this base so small in comparison to the overall tall structure, is able to hold it together without shaking in spite of so many hundreds of years. First in Ujjain, Udayagiri Hill, and later now in Mehrauli, Delhi. Much later, Nadir Shah, who attacked Delhi, he wanted to destroy this and take it with him. He couldn't. So he purposefully fired cannonballs at it. And you can see the mark of the cannonball here, the hollow it's made there. So these marks are visible now. So he came to plunder Delhi. Actually, he did a general massacre of Delhi for 57 days and plundered elephant loads of wealth from Delhi. But fortunately for us, he could not take this iron pillar with him and go.
Of course, he took the Kohinoor and the Peacock throne. But this he couldn't shake, and even the cannonball did not shake this pillar. It still stands intact. That goes to speak volumes for the civil engineering marvel.
Prinsep is one person who has written extensively about this pillar, and Prinsep is important because he is an Englishman. In Calcutta, you have a building for Prinsep near the Howrah Bridge, Howrah Hooghly River. He writes extensively about this pillar.
So he says the Sultan, when he visited that district and saw the column in the village of Tobra, he resolved to move it to Delhi and there erect it as a memorial to future generations. After thinking over the best means of lowering the column, orders were issued commanding the attendance of all the people dwelling in the neighborhood and all soldiers, both horse and foot. They were ordered to bring all materials and implements suitable for the work. Directions were issued for bringing parcels of the cotton, of the silk cotton trees, all of this. See, it's written in detail as to what was done. How they transported it, encased in cotton silk from top to bottom in reeds and ram skins, so that no damage might accrue to it. So very, very carefully they have transported it. A carriage with 42 wheels was constructed and ropes were attached to each wheels. We just saw the painting.
So today we see huge trucks with 20 wheels, 30 wheels, 40 wheels carrying heavy industrial machinery. Like that, those days they designed a special carriage of this size with 42 wheels to take this all the way from Ujjain in central India, Madhya Pradesh, all the way up to Delhi in the north.
A village called Tobra. district called Tobra. Thousands of men hauled at the ropes, and after great labor and difficulty, it was raised onto the carriage. So they have not even started moving, they have only raised it to the carriage. So much of effort. And then a strong rope was fastened. So he writes in detail, beautifully. It's nice to read this. Then by the simultaneous exertions of so many thousands of men, the carriage was moved and was brought to the banks of the Jumna.
Jumna is actually the present day Yamuna river, the way they say it in those days.
Here the Sultan came to meet it, and a number of large boats had been collected. So they bring it to the banks of the river Yamuna, and then they transport it by boat. And then the column was very ingeniously transferred to these boats and was then conducted to Firozabad, Delhi, where it was landed and conveyed into the palace with infinite labor and skill.
So he realized the value of such a wonderful pillar and moved it there, and it's there for us all to see now, this wonderful pillar. And Prinsep has recorded it a couple of 100 years back. There's a Prinsep Ghat now by the Hooghly River.
And see, here is yet another thing. See, even around 1200s, there were a large number of boats. A number of large boats had been collected, some of which could carry 5,000 and 7,000 maunds, 10 tons each maund of grain. So that means Yamuna was being used for internal navigation. So there were large boats that could ply down Yamuna carrying a lot of cargo. And look at what cargo they were. So they were equating. So they're saying if a ship is large enough, it can carry so much of grain. So look at the amount of grain
grown and then taken up and down the Yamuna and all rivers of India.
And this iron pillar, the unique feature of this is the corrosion resistance property. And we always talk about it as a unique feature, but that was a common feature of all the iron and steel that was produced from India.
We speak about high phosphorus. How is this high phosphorus possible? We look at it. We have already seen that whenever they made this root steel blades, they wrapped it in banana leaf, plantain banana leaf. So the phosphorus in the surface of the leaf got imbibed onto the iron, to the iron and steel. So which made it resistant, and the purity was so high, 99.72%. Even today's production does not have this high purity. And lastly, let's say we all know the present day air of Delhi is so polluted, but even this pollution has not affected this pillar. That's the beauty of this pillar. And look at this. This is a painting taken from a very old sketch of how this pillar was actually cast originally. See, here they built a brick building around this pillar and they're pouring the cast into it. See, step by step, and then beating it. Here they're making the cast hot, red hot cast, beating it up. So this is the steps to bring it here. So how step by step they built the whole pillar and cast it and made it one solid strong pillar. It's a sketch of it actually. And here is a particular observation by a person who was expert in the field of metallurgy, a British, his name is Sir Robert Hartfield. He got his knighthood for his contribution to the field of British metallurgy, and see what he says here.
It certainly is extraordinary to find that in spite of all the scientific advances that have been made, the Delhi pillar is, as far as I am able to judge, of a better quality than anything metallurgists are able to produce today. So during his time also they couldn't produce, and till date the wood steel of India has not been replicated by modern methods of manufacturing.
This quality that withstands this much of centuries of time, that's what is important. See, when you say good quality, it should able to withstand time and of the quality talking. So here is a statement by one of the well-known metallurgists of those times.